So this character was inspired by a client of mine. I used to sit at the table and kind of like glare at him across the way and sort of imagine what he was really like when he wasn't in the meeting, doing his meeting thing. Mr. Ivan Taddy was the sort of man who'd prefer to relax with a ball gag in his mouth, drop to his knees, hands cuffed behind his back, limp, lifeless manhood wrapped tightly in twine and whimpering at the sight of his fleshy mistress. But today, Ivan Taddy was not relaxed. He was working, sitting in his chair at the head of the conference table at the Sosa and Mom Liquor Importing Company. Ivan's toothy smile and cool, dry handshake had easily carved a place for him at the very peak of the management pyramid at Sosa and Mom. Ivan was being presented an advertising campaign. There were drawings and people discussing the drawings. There were words and people discussing the words. And there was some sort of conversation about cognac consumption by the African-American community. But Ivan's Cheshire smile and clasped pink hands created only the veneer of an attentive executive. Instead, Ivan thought about his breakfast, the bitter taste of German bread, the creamy texture of diet margarine, and the pulpless grapefruit juice that he drank on this and every morning. He recalled the hard, teased hair of the anchorwoman on the morning news and imagined the slight crunch that would result if he pressed his nose into her hair-sprayed helmet. Ivan took an audible inhale. "And what do you think, Mr. Taddy?" asked George Finley, Ivan's second in command. "Of course, George, as you well know, we need to see the research before we can commit the dollars," replied Ivan. "Certainly, Mr. Taddy," interrupted the man at the other end of the table. "We'll be doing our due diligence and we can turn numbers around for you very quickly." "I'm sure that's correct," Ivan agreed. "But now, I'm afraid, gentlemen and lady," that was me sitting in the corner, "lady," he said with a slight gesture to the female on his right, "I have to excuse myself." He stood up from his chair. "A pleasure, as always." And with that, Mr. Ivan Taddy left the main conference room. Ivan slumped back into his wide executive chair and wiped his palms on a crisp handkerchief. It was on this sort of day that he felt particularly empty. He'd actually not done any real work for over a decade and was now too high up the ladder for anyone to actually notice. He yearned for a time when he was more than just a shell. Ivan's thoughts drifted back to his days as a Sosa and Mom salesman and his first trip to Dupère, France. He remembered the dank, musty air of the old cognac caves and grazing his palm along the oak barrels, hearing firsthand how the stuff was made. The nose at Dupère was a man named Jacques Bourdonnais, who was the son of nose Jean-Georges Bourdonnais, who was the son of nose Pascal Bourdonnais. Each year, the nose would blend and create the subtle flavors of the region's eponymous drink. Part perfumier, part fortune teller, the nose created Dupère from the blends and stirrings known only to him. When he died, if he had no son, Dupère died with him. Ivan remembered watching Jacques hold the delicate glass at the base and boldly stuff his invaluable protuberance deep into the bowl, his fat fingers held as daintily as a ballerina's around the thin glass shaft. Jacques inhaled the molecules into his body, listening to its voice, solving the olfactory riddles it presented. Ivan emulated Jacques' motions, a swirl, a dip, a big inhale, a look to heaven. The cognac vapors tickled Ivan's nose, but try as he might, all he could taste was cognac. No herbaceous aftertaste, no peach and plum middle notes, no green or slate or stone. Where Jacques was rich and alive, Ivan was impotent, empty, and pathetic. Ivan needed to talk to Dominique immediately. He craved her lusty voice marching orders to him through the receiver. Would she need him to clean her toilets with the pink travel toothbrush again? Or navigate through his next meeting with clothespins on his chest? Ivan could think of nothing else but fulfilling her needs. Not the declining sales in the brown liquor category, or the national introduction of the cognac margarita, or the board luncheon today at Le Matin restaurant. Only the discreet demands of his mistress mattered today for Ivan. "I told you never to interrupt me between the hours of 1:40 and 2 p.m., clapped Dominique's firm, squeaky voice. If I tell you to do something, Ivy, you do it. You are nothing to me but a wad of cash at the end of my day. Just a rich, ugly, pathetic little man who can't get it up. You hear me, Ivan? I find you disgusting. I know, madame, Ivan squealed. He liked to think of Dominique as French, despite her pronounced Philadelphia accent. Madame, barked Dominique. Who do you think I am, Ivan, the Queen of fucking France? Ivan mopped his brow on the square of starched white material. Saliva filled his mouth. He swallowed down the spare liquid. I was thinking, mistress, madame, that there was something you needed me to do today? He asked hopefully. Clean something, perhaps? Here's what you can do for me, Ivan. I'll charge my new living room set on your platinum card. How's that? I'll charge a fucking living room set to you. Certainly, surely, madame, replied Ivan. Something really pretty. You goddamn right I will, Ivan, and while you're at it, Dominique continued, shove a pencil up your ass. I want you to shove a pencil up your ass and go to your fancy French lunch. Ivy, are you listening to me? I am, madame, Ivan said, grateful today that today finally had a purpose. You're a good boy, Ivy, cooed Mistress Dominique before she hung up. Au revoir, madame, quivered Ivan. Ivan began to relax in the broad embrace of his executive chair. He fumbled through the top for the appropriate implement. Not too sharp, not too chewed, not too short. Toward the back, behind the mini clips, the personalized Sosa and Mom stationery, and the Polaroids of Dominique's new end table, he found a good one, perfect for the job at hand. Mr. Ivan Taddy followed his instructions to a T and walked gleefully, pencil firmly in place, into the late morning sun toward Le Matin restaurant.